The sun had barely risen on September 26th, 1969, and yet London was already buzzing with anticipation. In the heart of the city, a humble record shop owner was tidying up his shelves, casually whistling to himself. As he reached for the vinyls on display, he noticed something peculiar. Groups of people were gathering outside, peering through the shop's glass door with impatient eyes. It wasn't unusual for fans to line up for a big album release, but the energy in the air was electric, almost palpable. Today was different. Across town, inside the sleek studios of EMI, Paul McCartney sat back, hands resting behind his head, staring at the ceiling. George was strumming his guitar in the corner, barely noticing as Ringo flipped through a magazine. John stood near the window, lost in thought. "So this is it, huh?" John finally said, breaking the silence. Paul looked at him, raising an eyebrow. "Looks like it," he replied. Abbey Road, their latest masterpiece, was ready to meet the world. But for the four men in that room, this wasn't just another album. It was a bittersweet farewell. The Beatles, once inseparable, had been on shaky ground for a while. Tensions had risen during the recording of the White Album a year earlier, with individual ambitions pulling them in different directions. Yet, despite the turmoil, they had come together one last time to create Abbey Road. It wasn't just an album, it was a bridge between their past and their uncertain future. The album cover, with the Fab Four casually walking across a zebra crossing outside Abbey Road Studios, was a simple but iconic image. Little did they know that crosswalk would become one of the most famous in the world. "What do you reckon they'll say about this one?" George asked, not looking up from his guitar. Ringo shrugged. "Maybe it'll surprise them," he muttered. Though the public knew the band had been struggling, no one could predict what this album would mean, not only to the music world, but to the legacy of the Beatles themselves. As the first customers of the day pushed open the shop door and hurried to the counter, the shopkeeper's phone rang. "Have you got it?" "Abbey Road?" a voice shouted on the other end. "Of course," the shopkeeper said, grinning. The vinyl records flew off the shelves as soon as they were stocked. For fans who had followed the Beatles since their mop-top days on The Ed Sullivan Show, this was more than just an album. It was the end of an era. For others, too young to remember the start of Beatlemania, it was simply music. Good music. Really good music. What people didn't know was that Abbey Road was recorded amidst inner band chaos. Their manager, Brian Epstein, had died 2 years earlier, leaving the band without a guiding hand. Creative differences had been bubbling under the surface, and now each member was pulling in a different direction. But somehow, amid all the noise, they had produced something magical. Songs like Come Together, Something, and the epic 16-minute medley on side 2 became instant classics, solidifying their place in rock history. As the final track played, Paul stood up from his chair and walked over to the window, where John was still standing. "You think this will be the last time?" Paul asked quietly. John glanced at him, then turned back toward the view outside. "Maybe," he said, voice soft. The sun was setting over London, casting long shadows across the iconic zebra crossing outside. It was a quiet moment, heavy with unspoken words. Abbey Road would soon be out in the world, a parting gift from a band that had changed music forever. Abbey Road will be remembered as one of the greatest albums of all time.